They tied her to the stake, chains digging into alien skin scarred from years of silence. She had seen empires fall and tyrants beg for mercy, but she only spoke the truth. The crowd jeered, torchlight flickering in their hatred, yet she stood tall, eyes locked on the human who dared step forward. They called her a traitor, a witch, a liar, but she never begged, never wept, never screamed. And in that silence, humanity heard something terrifying, something holy, something worth dying for. They dragged her through the square, arms bound, tears burned into cracked skin, dust clinging to her robes. Crowds roared with accusation, jeers of betrayal echoing off ancient stone. The executioner's torch hovered inches from her face, waving flames flickering over scars that no longer ached. She didn't flinch. She didn't beg. She only whispered one word, truth. Her name was Arava Shalene, once a scholar among the Athari before revolt consumed their planet. She had records, hidden testimony, names, timelines that pointed to the tyrant's crimes. The council ordered silence. The regime demanded lies. But Arava refused to speak what wasn't real, even when they chained her to the stake. They tried intimidation, they tried persuasion, they even beat her until her voice broke, then rebuilt her bones with scars that screamed louder than flesh. Still, she refused to lie. The human diplomat stood in the back row of the tribunal tent, quiet, composed, uniform spotless under ceremonial vestments. Captain Celine Nor had watched the trial from the beginning, watched how Arava stood alone before lies and witnesses, refused every false confession. When the executioner's torch was lit, they expected screams. They expected bargaining. They expected a confession. They got none. When the flames licked her feet, she inhaled, flesh sizzling, but she stayed silent. When the heat crept to her throat, she smiled faintly, silver eyes glinting with sorrow and fire. And beneath the crowd screaming, she spoke again, truth. That was when Celine stepped forward. She stood before the council, light from the torches reflecting on her badge. She saluted the tyrant regent, her voice steady, formidable. Humanity honors honesty. We will escort this prisoner to safety. You burn her lies, but we will carry her truth across galaxies. The regent sneered. The council chambers fell silent. Earth's envoy wasn't supposed to interfere. But Celine wasn't there to negotiate. She was there to take a stand. Flames rose along Arava's robe, embers curling into the air like dying stars. Her eyes closed softly, as if hearing a song only she could remember. The executioner raised the torch higher. The crowd leaned in, waiting for collapse. Then feathers of ember dropped. The bonds around her wrists melted. Soldiers gasped. Arava inhaled again deeply, and looked up. The torch had burned through her robe, but not her spirit. The human officers moved in a disciplined fashion, blasting the bindings, forming a protective circle. Celine knelt beside Arava, brushed soot from her hair. "Stand," she said. Arava obeyed. They pulled her away through shocked silence. The crowd parted, not out of reverence, but fear. No one dared follow. That night, Celine watched over Arava as med drones cleaned her wounds. Flesh had melted, but burns had sealed like scarred maps of betrayal. Medical tech replaced skin. Still, her eyes stayed silent, still resolute. When Celine offered fruit, Arava took only one piece and ate it, tasting sweetness after pain. The next morning Celine stood before assembled human and Athari allies. Arava was beside her, scarred robes replaced with simple tunic, hair bundled back, eyes clear. Celine spoke. She chose truth. She refused to lie when lies would keep her alive. That courage, shock echo across worlds. Humanity stands with that courage. Messages arrived from across the coalition. Stories of human ambassadors and ships arriving to protect Arava's associates, rescue hidden witnesses, archive documents never allowed to reach public record. The tyrant's regime faltered as hidden networks emerged, truth spreading like wildfire. Arava recovered, walked again, smiled once at Celine. Her voice returned, soft but firm. She testified in tribunal after tribunal, not bitter, not broken, but luminous with resolve. Those who had burned her now cried shame. Those who had ordered her death were exposed. 1 year later at the Great Assembly, Arava stood before thousands, a mosaic of species and diplomats. She spoke in slow, deliberate tones. I was told that if I spoke truth I would die. They were correct, but I did not scream, and because of that, truth survived. Celine stood in the crowd, tears mirrored in her eyes. Humanity's flag flew beside the reconstructed Athari banner. Truth had become their bridge. Time passed. Arava traveled to Earth, visiting halls where lies had once been concealed. She lectured on justice, archives, the power of honesty. She inspired systems that outlawed forced confessions, banned influence of regime lies, and protected truth-bearing individuals above all. People began to speak of the silence that burned, not as suffering, but as rebellion purified by fire. Children learned of her in schoolbooks, her name beside those of other truth martyrs. Her scars were rendered as art, ribbons of flame, silver eyes, robes of flame yet unyielding. Years later, Arava visited the ruins where she had been tied to the stake. Ash covered the square, stone still cracked by heat. Celine joined her, older now, uniform lined with medals. Together they placed a simple plaque. She refused to lie, so they burned her. She still would not scream. Silence followed, not because truth feared sound, but because truth needed no voice anymore. In the end, truth did not die in that fire. Humanity brought her back. And through her silence, they heard something holy, a promise built on honesty, fearlessness, and a refusal to bend. When new civilizations make contact, they ask who we are. They're shown Earth's pale blue flag, and they're told Arava's story. That humanity values truth over peace. That we honor those who speak when silence is safer. That sometimes, the greatest weapon is a single truth spoken in the face of flames.